Let's start today's video with a question that matters more than it seems. What truly wins on a battlefield? Raw speed or applied intelligence? A Grad MLRS truck, empty after firing, can push 85 kilometers per hour. An FPV bomber carrying a live payload? Around 60, sometimes more, often less, depending on wind, load, and hands. In perfect conditions, speed looks decisive. But war erases perfect conditions. Mud stacks entire wells. Ice hardens ruts into rails. The road narrows into decisions. Tonight, in the black air above a frozen ribbon of asphalt near Kupiansk, I learned what actually catches what and why. If you've ever weighed speed against intent, tell me in the comments what you'd bet on, the fleeing steel or the small mind steering a cheap drone through cold air. Your answer might be the same as mine. Or not. Either way, what happened next decided the fate of a convoy worth $12 million. I am 45. I've flown more missions than I count, less than I remember. I don't brag about numbers. My hands shake more in kitchen light than under tracer fire. Adrenaline doesn't make you brave. It makes you precise. We prep in silence because silence keeps edges sharp. Tonight, frost climbed the edges of our maps like white moss. A stove hissed and failed. Breath fogged our lenses until we heated them with palm skin. The road south of Svatov takes a shallow bend past a blackened tree line. It's nothing on a map. It's everything when you're threading a $300 frame through a world that wants to eat signals. We fly small because small survives. My bomber's frame had cycled through 3 lives before tonight. The carbon arms were epoxied and zip-tied in 2 places where a younger operator would have replaced them. The camera, low latency, not low cost, came from a crashed racer. Batteries were second-hand but tested under load. I don't worship parts. I worship behavior. I soldered a clean power rail, trimmed the antenna like a violin string, and balanced the props until they hummed like a ceiling fan at 2 in the morning. The payload was a shaped answer to a question I hoped they'd ask. Where is your softest place when you think you're armored? If you think it's in front, you haven't hauled fuel for an army. There's a myth about cruelty with drones. The ones who say it usually don't hear the rotor wash or the crackle in the goggles when jamming starts like sleet on a metal roof. We don't toy with targets. We don't stage pain. One drone, one job. If a second drone is nearby, it holds a second job. Efficiency isn't emotionless. It's merciful to time. Time is the only currency that never recycles. The men down there live in its scarcity, and so do we. They run because instinct survives fear. We press on because training survives fear. Between us there's a narrow bridge where intent meets physics, and whoever crosses first writes the report. Our reconnaissance flew first and returned jittery video of canvas and deception. A tarped shape is still a shape. Heat seeps from seams. Stack 3 trucks tight enough, you'll lock their silhouettes into a summary of purpose. We counted, a fueler by the slumped thermal signature at the rear, a munitions carrier by the rectangular density along its bed, an MTLB tug up front with a gun behind it in escort, maybe a BTR or just courage on wheels. 12 million is a guess pressed into a ledger. The real value is time, what it would supply in kilometers advanced and shells fired. We watched for half an hour as they idled under firs, heat blooming into weak halos. When they rolled, we had a window measured in minutes before the ECM net tightened like fishing line. I launched into cold that bit through gloves. Motors drew power unevenly in the first seconds. Copper hates winter. I flew low and wider than you'd think, letting trees cut my silhouette from the sky. At speed, everything in the goggles comes at you like a confession. Fast, honest, unforgiving. Telemetry bounced. The interference wasn't full bore, not yet, just a flex of muscle from a jammer that had found its footing. I angled off to a drainage ditch and skimmed it, the drone's shadow stitching across snow like a seam. The convoy was fast when they believed they were unseen. 85 on a straight line if they were empty, less with weight and fear. Fear is heavy. It makes drivers tap brakes in places where only ghosts stand. In the chase, minutes stretch into unkindness. The first time I cut too close, a crosswind pushed the frame sideways and the view swung into branches, then sky. I pulled out and cut throttle to invisible. A searchlight swept the tree line, big and dumb and bad at physics. A tracer stitched air behind me, red thread trying to stitch a moving tear. I whispered, not to the drone, but to the air, "Stay thin." If you want to know what advantage a $300 drone has over a $12 million convoy, it's not speed. It's turning radius. It's freedom from roads. It's the ability to cut every corner a truck must respect and to ride air where a wheel respects gravity. For 33 minutes I bled edges off their route, through a stand of poplar, over a flooded culvert, across a frozen ditch that would swallow a ton of truck but hold 4 motors and a will. I saw their exhaust thicken. The munitions truck started to lose the column in the bends. That's the one that matters when the question becomes, where does fire begin? I broke off to climb, just a little. Jamming grew angrier, like bees shaken in a jar. The picture snowed, then cleared. Battery temp sagged a degree and I adjusted throttle the way you touch a shoulder in the dark. In my ear, a voice said what I was thinking. Don't be a hero, be correct. Heroes get streets named after them. Correct gets missions finished. They hit the long straight, and I knew this was the last chance without pushing into blind. The bomber's mass talks when you commit. You feel the decision in your hands. You can't rehearse that in training. You learn it in failure. I brought the nose down, found the exhaust flare where cold meets hot, and let the noise of my own breath go away. I wasn't chasing anymore. I was solving. The munitions carrier's tarp rattled in slipstream. A corner came loose and showed steel crates like teeth. There's a spot between arrogance and protection where systems forget they can fail. On a truck like that, it's the seam where cargo and fuel hate each other. Not a fair fight. I didn't want fairness. I wanted finality. The last 10 meters are a tunnel. The world is a circle that shrinks and pulls you through it. Light widens, then everything becomes a wordless agreement between pressure and metal. Impact is not loud in the goggles. It's a white flower blooming and then a blackout blink. In the field, it is thunder and a wind that runs both ways. Flames found everything they love: oil, paint, canvas, breath. The convoy's spine snapped first, then the rear bucked as a fueler resigned from the argument and fell into fire. Smoke climbed, thick and wet. The road closed itself with heat. You can measure damage in money if you want, but what you really measure is time denied. Hours of advance halted, days of supply postponed, a week of planning turned into phone calls. We didn't celebrate. We exhaled. A second drone took station to record and deter rescue. The escort gun sprayed into trees and silence replied. Someone down there shouted orders with a voice that feared microphones. Their headlights stayed on because fear loves light even when it helps the wrong side. Over comms, someone mentioned the number, 12 million. Maybe true, maybe a story. Either way, the number that mattered was one. One cheap drone against one vulnerable idea, that roads make you fast. Roads make you predictable. You'll hear people say this is luck. It isn't. It's a system built from small, boring decisions made correctly under pressure. It's recon that didn't blink. It's an operator who abandoned the first angle because the crosswind said no. It's a team that knows when to keep a second platform in reserve, not for cruelty but for completion. It's the unglamorous math of battery temps and bitrate and when to ride the ditch instead of the skyline. When the fire dimmed enough to reveal shapes, the road looked like a frozen river that had cracked and refrozen wrong. The air smelled of plastic and a promise no one should make to a soldier, that they'll be safe if they just keep moving forward. I thought about the men in the trucks. The ones who jumped. The ones who didn't. I don't celebrate their pain. I record its consequences. That's the job, not spectacle, but document. This isn't content, it's evidence of how 21st century war shifts power toward whoever learns faster and turns tighter. Back at the table where frost used to creep into maps, the stove worked again. We poured tea that tasted like wood smoke and nerves. Someone made a joke with no laughter attached to it, and that was enough. I checked my hands for tremor. It waited until the second cup. All victories cost something, even the cheap ones. Especially the cheap ones. Because they ask you to be exact in ways that turn into habits, and habits walk home with you. If you've watched this far, you're not here for noise. You're here for how. So here's your question again, with a better frame. On a road carved by winter, does speed or intention decide the outcome? Drop your answer below. And if you've served, add the one detail Hollywood always misses. We read every comment. The best insights shape how we tell the next story and maybe how we fight the next fight. I am 45, and tomorrow I'll fly again. Not because I like it. Because it works. A $300 frame can write a $12 million correction when you put it in the right place at the right time with the right hands. That's not bravado. That's the math. Subscribe if you want reportage, not spectacle. Share this with someone who still believes price equals power. And if you're here for the long fight, not the loud one, stay. We'll keep showing you the sky from 2 meters off the ground, where roads mean less and decisions mean everything.